All right, so it's now Monday, November the 9th, and my system is completely ready to start running. Basically, you can see the setup here. I'm going to show you the schematics of it as well right now. I'll just put this picture in so you can see the schematics in a drawing and then match it up with the image of what you'll be seeing as I show you. Basically, I've taken the PVC board, some cuttings that I had left from my hydroponic stuff, and that's a good insulative material to make sure it doesn't have much effect on any of the fields because it's not metal or anything. Wood would be also good. It's a good insulative material, but I use this. It's nice and clear and white, and you can see that well. And I can move this whole thing around because I got my in plug going over there, which is going to go into socket, and I got my out plug over there. I can move this entire box, put it in the car, and just take it with me if I wanted to go somewhere or something with it. So basically it's really simple. I'm going to run through it. I also want to mention one thing first. I'm going to make another video after this about my control group. I have another meter that I bought identical to these two meters, identical. These guys are actually the same, but I'll show this in the other video. All three of them are the same. They're actually just their number, their part numbers is just a couple of parts from each other. So they're made at the same factory in the same day, from what I can see, because these guys are the same batch. So I'll show that in another video. And I want to talk a little bit about the theory behind this stuff as well. I want to give you a little bit more information about myself, how I relate to the Keshe Foundation, how I see things. So there's two more videos coming after this that I would advise you to watch, which is one of the control group and one just a little bit about the theory of it all and how I see things and what I expect before I start running the system. I think it's important to have a little bit about this stuff as well, about myself. But to get back to this system, I just want to show you, you've seen the schematics. You can also see the schematics, I think, on my Facebook page or something. And I've posted it several times as well around the Keshe Foundation. Basically, that's my in plug. I've made sure that that plug, the live wire of it, the live side of it, matches my live side in my socket. I've got a socket behind this cupboard here, and I've made sure that my live wire matches the live wire there. So that's the red wire, the live wire, going into my meter, and then it's coming out over on this wire, and then connecting to my Magrav, and going back out into the next meter, and then connecting to the socket, which will be my load side of it all, right? That one over there. The black wire is the same as the zero wire. It's the negative coming in. It's marked black. It's going into my meter, and it's coming out of my meter and running to the next meter, and then running into there, right? I'll show some of the details right now. I'll take this thing a little bit closer so we can take a closer look. So what I have here is let me just put it like this. I have my wire coming in. This is my live wire going into my meter and coming out here. Then I've got the capacitor hooked up. So I've got my negative side of my capacitors hooked up on this side, and the positive side of my capacitors hooked up to the zero line, right? The negative line. Then my live wire is continuing, and it's hooking up first to the other set of capacitors. Whoops, sorry. Got to get this thing right. There you go. Then it's hooked up to my next set, so it's running from here, continuing on, and then it's hooked to the next set of capacitors. Again, my negative side's over here of the capacitors, and my positive side here. So my gravitational, my magnetic. Same thing here. My gravitational and my magnetic is on that side, the positive, right? Then it's going into this coil system, and this coil system, I mean, people ask me on my YouTube video about how to hook up the coils. It's better to look at the schematics. To really show you while I'm wiring this thing, it's just a pain in the ass. It's not clear anyway. But the point really is, there's 3 sets of coils, and each set has 4 coils, 2 small ones and two big ones. In other words, the 2 small ones are the gravitational and magnetic small one, and then the gravitational big and magnetic big one. So one has 80 turns, the other one has 160 turns. So basically each set of coils, 3 sets in total, are stacked on top of each other in the system that I showed you in other videos. And basically my live wire is coming in at the bottom, and it's hooking up to my negative side, which is the smallest gravitational coil, which then runs around through itself, and then it goes to the bigger gravitational coil. And then from the bigger gravitational coil, once it's run through that, it's coming to the smaller magnetic, and it inverses in the direction. So now it's running the other direction in the gravitational small coil on the inside. And then once it comes out that end, it hooks up to the bigger magnetic coil. And from the end of that, it's the wire that's coming out from the first set. Then it's hooking up exactly the same to the second layer and the third layer, ending up with a magnetic end on this side, to which I connect again my positive live wire coming out and going to this side here of the capacitor, and then continuing out into my next meter. Right? So look at the schematics and take a good look at what I've done here. This is, from my understanding, the setup that the Keshe, Mr. Keshe, and the explanations in the Blueprint Week showed us, and I've followed all the steps meticulously as far as I'm concerned. Take a good look at it. What I'm expecting is the next thing. If this thing is what it says it should be, and if my system has been set up properly, and if my GaNs material is correct, because the nano coating was perfect, there's nothing wrong with that. The nano material, you know, I've looked into this stuff. I don't know, you know, just if you look up copper hydroxide on the internet, it looks exactly like what I got. Beautiful turquoise, you know, what they call nano coat, enough GaNs material, gas in a nano state. I don't know. It looks to me like small particles of copper, oxidized copper, copper oxide or copper hydroxide. To me, it looks all the same. But okay, let's go with it. This is GaNs. I dipped my coils twice, let them dry completely. So between as well, I let the first dip, then I dried it, then the second dip. I've done everything I could do. Take a good look at the system. What I'm expecting from the system is the input is coming from that meter. So I got my input over there, it's going into that meter. So everything that's consumed from those two wires on this side, right, from the system on this side of the meter, should indicate how much electricity it's drawing from my grid. And that meter over on that side is the meter after my coil system. So that should be showing me how much, well, that doesn't show me anything. It shows me from that point over there, the load side. So if I take my load side over here, I want that load side to show me, it does show me how much my load is consuming. So I had this system hooked up before straight, without any coils and any capacitors. Basically just from meter to meter, straight wires, a red and a black wire. And I ran my fan, the fan I'm going to be using for the experiment in the beginning for the load, and I ran them just to see if the meters were running exactly perpendicular, you know, the same. So what I've done, I ran it from 0.0, so from 0.5 to 1.3. So that's 0.8 kilowatt hours. And both of the meters are now exactly at 1.3. So the meters are running perfectly alike. You can see right here, let me take you a little bit closer. This meter show me 1.3 kilowatt hours, exactly the same brand. You can pause and check and do everything you want, made in Germany. And then the second meter, also 1.3. So when I ran this fan, without any of the coil systems and capacitors, the meters are running exactly the same. So I'm happy with that. The meters are a match. So what I'm expecting now is that the idea is the electron energy is going to come in here. It's going to hit the coil system, go through it, and cause a plasmatic field. From what my understanding is that that's what's going to happen. And then the plasmatic field, it starts living, let's say. Once it's created and it's alive, then whatever I want from the load side on this side will be drawing plasma and electron energy. So a little bit of electron energy, and then, which is basically the barbaric old energy of matter state. And then we've got the new plasmatic condition, which then we can draw from that plasmatic condition. So if everything is right, that meter should still show the actual consumption of my load, and should be higher at some point than that one. So now, before, when I was running them without the coil system, they were running exactly the same, but with this system in between, this thing should be running in such a way that I'm consuming more than I'm consuming from my grid. In other words, there's something occurring in the plasmatic condition that feeds the load side, and in other words, lowering my consumption of the electron energy. I also am setting up the control group, and I'll explain that in the next video as well, to make sure that exact same fan that I have here will be used as well for the control group, and they will be running at the same time with the same meter, to make sure that there's nothing happening in this system that's somehow tripping any of the meters, because I don't want this coil system to, you know, cause something with the meter so that the meter starts running slower or that meter starts running faster. I don't want any of that stuff. I want to make sure that there's exactly occurring what Mr. Keshe says is occurring, to try to exclude any of these things being just trickery or something, you know, and most people falling for it and God knows what, you know. But I'm going for the story as it being true, and I'll explain a little bit later in that next video or the one after of my visions on Mr. Keshe and his stuff that he's talking about, and how I approach this whole situation open-mindedly, because I'm an open-minded skeptic. I don't believe anybody, but I listen and I make my own conclusions, and my conclusions mean nothing, and because they might change tomorrow again if I find new findings, you know. So by no means do I claim to know anything absolutely, because anybody who does is as silly as you know, the people who are seeming to destroy this planet as we speak. So I hope this thing is going to help us out and work, but I'm just waiting, I'm seeing. So anyway, this is the system. Take a good look at the schematics. If I'm wrong somewhere, if the Keshe Foundation is also seeing these videos, or somebody that knows, because I haven't seen much out there yet, but then please show me, tell me, let me correct. But as far as I know, it's all correct. The only thing that might be a bit of a problem is that the capacitors, I let them dry out completely, but I don't know if the capacitors are have to be completely dry or not, but they're not clear on that. So, well, they're not clear on a lot of things. That's why I'm trying to make these videos clearer than the Keshe Foundation is doing, because at this moment there's a lot of confusion still out there, and what people need is some really, you know, 1, 2, 3 ABC nuts to bolts and simple, you know, childish almost explanation, so that even a young kid can understand and make these things. And can't do that in, you know, 14 sessions in a blueprint week and put all the theory in between and all the talks in between with all the other stuff. You know, got to get down to the bones, and that's hard for me too, to get down to the nitty-gritty and boil it down to the facts, because I could talk for hours about stuff like this anyway, especially when it links up to consciousness, which is what this is. This is definitely linking up to a higher field, closer to nothing, closer to the space of being nothing, the void, the eternal everything, the original state of being, the source. So this is definitely a higher energy system. So I'm interested and I'm curious. So hope to see you guys in the next video, and please do watch the 2 next videos, especially the one where I talk a little bit about this kind of stuff and how I view it, because it is as important, if not more important, than the actual functioning of the system.